Hi there, I'm Jen with Pressure Cooking Today, and today I'm here to talk to you about the Cosori Pressure Cooker. Over the last few years, Cosori's become one of the most popular brands of kind of standalone basket-style air fryers. And we've been getting a lot of questions about the air fryers and about the pressure cookers, so we thought that we would give it a whirl, let you know what we like about it and what you need to know to get started cooking. This is not sponsored, this is just our honest review. All right, so you can see that Cosori has an all stainless steel housing, which is really a nice feature. It's supposed to be fingerprint resistant, which works for everything but my kids' sticky fingers. When you are cleaning the housing, you want to just use a damp cloth. Definitely don't want to get any water in there. The lid sings you a little song. So the lid, I really like how it has this little orange button right here. This little orange dot lines up with this little orange dot on the housing itself, and you line those up and that tells you how to lock it in place. Makes it really easy. I also like that the lid has the venting and sealing feature over here. So it's well away from the steam release valve where it comes out. When you tip it, you can see the steam release valve kind of kicks back a little ways, so I know the steam is going to come this way. So when I release the steam, I'll stand aside. The lid is auto locking, which I really love because there's few things more frustrating than setting a cook time and then realizing that it hadn't been sealed the whole time. So it automatically seals. To wash the lid, you'll take it off. You'll remove this sealing ring from the housing. It's a little bit tight when it's new. It loosens up over time. It's just this kind of standard food grade safe silicone. I like to just get some soapy sudsy water in the sink and get it all nice and sudsy and then just rinse it off real good, dry it. And then I like to put it back on immediately. I tend to forget things and get mixed up a little bit. When you put it on, you want to just pick a starting spot and kind of push until it seats itself along this ring. Sometimes it'll be a little bit of resistance, but it goes on pretty nice. And you want to make sure, I don't know if you can see right here, it's a little bit out right there. If I were to put it on, the steam would just escape through the sides and we would get an error message. So you want to make sure you got it pushed all the way around in place. Get that last little bit on, there we go. So that's how you would clean that. This silver thing right here is the anti-block shield. It just pops off like that. Wash that with soapy water, dry it off, and pop it back on. Again, they can be a little bit stiff when you are just starting with a new pressure cooker. So if it doesn't come off real easy, a little bit of elbow grease. Sometimes we've used the bottom of a little rubber chair bottom cover that you can buy at Home Depot for like a couple bucks. Those are the 1-inch size is perfectly sized to go on and help pull that off. And then you've got your float valve right here. You can see it comes up and down, and that's what allows the pressure cooker to come to pressure. When I am cleaning it, I'll put my finger on the underside of it to push it up, and then I take off this little silicone gasket, and then the silver piece, the float valve, will just fall right into my hand. And then these ones, I'm so worried I'm gonna drop down the sink, so I never let them go. I get them sudsy, I wash them out real good, shake them, dry them off, and then I immediately put it back in. To put it back in, you want the little circle side facing the lid. Just pop it through, and again, hold it in place with a finger while you slide this little mini gasket back on top. There we go. So that's how you wash and care for the lid. And then the Cosori comes with an inner pot. It's made out of aluminum that's been coated with ceramic. The user manual said it's BPA free, so it's food safe. And it's got little etchings on the side that says max fill, 2/3 full, half full. And that's just to kind of let you know like the maximum limit. If you're cooking like oatmeal or pastas or potatoes, other foods that typically foam, you want to kind of keep it under that half full line. Otherwise, you can go to the 2/3 line. Most recipes for pressure cookers are written for a 6-quart pressure cooker, which this one is. So if you're following a trusted recipe, you should be good to go there. So I think that's all the bits on how to clean it. So next we'll talk about the buttons. Let me lock that lid back in place. So we'll line up the orange, twist it. Okay, so you can see on the screen up here, they've got several buttons to choose from. I'm just gonna look around. On the front, they've got the pressure cook setting, is kind of up here underneath these little, I don't know, this little bar. And then down here are the non-pressure cook settings. So it's got a pressure cook setting, slow cook, sauté, ferment, which if you're used to Instant Pots, the ferment setting is the yogurt setting basically. And you can use all of that to make homemade yogurt. And then a sous vide setting, which I really like. It's a nice feature. Most of the recipes on our website use just two buttons, the sauté button and the pressure cook button. So I'm going to teach you how to use those. So first, when you sauté, you want to sauté with the lid off. Remove that. And then we'll click sauté. And then you can use these little plus and minus buttons up here to adjust the time. When I'm sautéing, I don't generally adjust the time because I want it to stay on until I'm done and then I'll hit cancel. But if you want to, you can. You can also use this temp set button down here. And when you push that, it has low, high, and custom. So that's kind of nice. When you're using the temp set button, it will let you go from, I think as low as like 248 degrees to like 356 degrees. I typically just use it on the one setting, leave it as is. Barbara tends to like to sauté her meats on a much higher temperature than she does for like finishing things off at a more gentle simmer. But again, whatever works best for you is the best way to go about it. So once you've got the time and the temperature you like, you have to make sure you hit start. Otherwise, it's going to just stay as is. Let's see. Yep. And now you see how it's got this funny little like box. It kind of reminds me of the snake game that I used to play. It will do that while it's preheating. And then eventually it will reach the correct temperature you set it to. And so it'll say hot. And just like when you're sauteing on a pan on the cooking stove, you'll want to wait until it reads hot in order to get a good sear or saute. Another thing I really like about the Cosori is that it's got these little indicator bars up at the top. So you can see it's in the preheating bar. So you know that the pot is getting warmer in addition to the little like snake display up here. And that happens on the pressure cook setting too. I really like it. So I can tell it's getting close. The second preheating light came on. I can feel the heat coming off the pot. So it should be pretty soon now that it'll switch over. All right, so you heard the little ding-a-ling and now the pot is starting to count down and you know that it's hot enough that you can add your oil and then you'll want to have your meat or your onions or whatever else you're adding with it ready to go right away so that they don't scorch. If you notice the stuff in your pot is cooking a little too quickly and you're worried about scorching, you can always, just like you would on the stovetop, lift it up. It is a little bit hot, so you might want to have a hot pad available to do that, but you can lift it up and away from the heating element just like you would on the stove, and that will slow the cooking and allow you to stir and make sure that things don't scorch. And then you can always come back here and adjust the time. So I'm going to hit cancel. Okay, so let's move on to pressure cooking. To pressure cook in your Cosori pressure cooker, you're going to go over and select the pressure cook button. And then you'll need to use your plus and minus buttons to set a cook time. I'll just do it for 1 minute. So I've set a 1 minute cook time. You want to double check down here that the pressure is on high. And then the most important thing about pressure cooking is it needs a liquid in order to build the pressure. If you don't use a liquid, you're going to get a burn notice. So I've just got a cup of water. I'll add that. And then you got to lock the lid in place. So match up your orange dots. Come on. And then go ahead and hit start. All right, so you can see the little snake guy going around on the display and the preheating indicator light has come on, so you know that things are all good to go there. I like to double check and just make sure that my seal, my valve is flipped to seal, which it is. So we're good to go. So now we just get to wait until the pot reaches pressure. All right, so you heard that beep and now the display is changed over. The indicator lights showing that it's cooking and the time is starting to count down. Since it's 1 minute, we'll just keep it here. All right, and so once this cook time ends, the indicator light will switch over to the keep warm setting, and we'll get to choose a pressure release. So choosing your pressure release, you'll want to do as indicated by your recipe. You can choose either a natural release, which is you don't do anything, you just let the pressure come down on its own. It'll take a fair amount of time. So those beeps indicated that we've switched over. So the natural release at this point, it's not going to be building any pressure. It's going to be just kind of letting it cool down naturally on its own. The heating element has turned to the keep warm setting, and it's just going to slowly release. The next option is a quick pressure release, which I'll show you in just a minute. A lot of our recipes use a combination. We'll say allow the pressure to release naturally for 5 minutes, then finish with a quick pressure release. Essentially, that combination release gives you kind of the best of both worlds. You get the natural release is really good at making sure that any foaming that's going on in the pot goes down, whereas the quick pressure release lets it out as quickly as it can go, and you could take the lid off sooner. You'll want to use a quick release for things like pastas or vegetables with a low cook time, anything that you're worried about overcooking. The cooking continues during this release process. And so, but for things like oatmeals and beans, anything that's foamy, you definitely want to give it at least 10 minutes to really get that foaming down so it doesn't kind of all come out the steam release valve. So now I'm going to show you what a quick release looks like. You'll just use this little vent. You'll move this over from the sealed position to the vent position. But one thing you want to double check first is you want to make sure that there's no hands, faces, overhang cabinets where the steam's going to come out. And like I said, I told you before, it's going to vent at an angle, which means it'll head towards me. So I'll just step aside for a minute. And I don't know if you can see it. Like if I stand in front of it now, you can maybe be able to see the steam. It's hot. If you see any little bits of water coming out the top, that's totally normal. But if you start to see bubbles, immediately slide it back to the sealed position and wait 30 seconds to a minute longer and then back to vent. That's called an intermittent release. And if you're cooking oats and they do start to foam, the last thing you want to do is to let that make a giant mess all over your counter. So as soon as you notice it, put it back to sealed. So the float valve dropped, which means it's okay to take the lid off. But you want to be aware that when the lid comes off, there's going to be a big fountain of steam, just like you had a pot of pasta on the stove. So we'll just unlock it and make sure there's no face or hands in the way. All that steam. One of the things I really like about the Cosori is it has a lid fin, which is this little nub that sticks out on the lid, and it fits right here on the pressure cooker, so it's out of the way while you're stirring and finishing your meal, which is really, really nice. So that's basically the pressure cook setting. Now, if you were cooking, say, something with a sauce, you could go ahead and hit cancel, select sauté, and finish your sauce that way if you needed to. If you're serving a dump and go meal, you're basically ready to give the contents in the pot a stir and get cooking. Okay, so we're done with the pressure cook setting. It's quite hot, so I like, these are little Instant Pot mini mitts. There's a whole bunch of ones from all sorts of different brands. You can buy them on Amazon. We'll put a link to our Amazon shop down in the description. But you just lift the pot out and you're ready to serve. One of the last features I want to talk about is the keep warm setting. The keep warm setting is kind of automatically turned on unless you turn it off. I really love the keep warm setting when we are doing like a big gathering and we've got lots of people, or my boys are growing now, and when they want seconds, it keeps it all nice and warm. I think they said the default's like 163. All this information's in the user manual, and we'll have it on a post to make it easy for you to access. If you want to turn off the keep warm setting, you need to do that before you start the pressure cook function. Otherwise, just hit cancel. So, and then that essentially has the keep warm setting turned off as well. You can also just unplug it if you're worried. If you've made something like rice in here and you've kept the keep warm setting on, and then you take a little while before you come back to your pressure cooker while you eat and maybe clean up, sometimes that keep warm setting is enough that it will lightly cook that bottom layer of rice on there. So it's just something to be aware of. I generally leave it on, but just be aware of it. Finally, I wanted to touch on the non-pressure cook settings. So you've got a slow cook setting, you've got a sauté setting, we talked about the ferment yogurt setting and the sous vide setting. All of those are controlled similarly to the sauté setting. So you would select like sous vide, and then you've got your temperature. This one is currently set to 134 Fahrenheit. You can do it up or down with your plus or minus. And then when you're ready, you hit start. To cook with the sous vide setting, you want to have the lid on but vented. So you would line up your little dots. And then just slide it to vent. You could hear a little bit of pressure coming out the steam release valve. That's because it still has that hot pressure cooking water in it. So you'll notice I had to push on the lid a little bit to get the lid back on. That's very normal with pressure cooking and with all models of pressure cooking. So sous vide, have the lid on, vented, and then select start. There you go. Okay, so that's the basics on what you need to know to get started cooking with your Cosori pressure cooker. If you have questions, leave us a comment below or visit our website. We'll put a link in the description to several easy beginner recipes that we like to recommend. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe.